Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, the podcast about gacha in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Steven, and this is my co-host, David.
Hey everyone.
And it's that time again. It's time for Swipe, Save, Skip for the version 2 characters of Genshin Impact. Are you excited, Dave?
I'm ready to go. I know we're bringing it back. First time we did this, we did the 1.x versions, until now it's time for the 2.x characters. So, I haven't looked exactly at the list that you've provided yet, so I'm kind of going in this blind, and I may be surprised about, oh, that character was back in 2.x or whatever. So, uh, yeah, I'm ready to dive right in.
Okay,
And
well,
are we just doing 5-star characters, or are we going to touch on 4-star characters today?
nope, 5-star characters because we here at Brohoyo do not approve of pulling for 4-star characters. That's come to bite us before. We don't approve of it. It's strongly discouraged. So
To bite us or come to bite you?
look, Royal we, Royal us. Um, anyways, I will just before we do jump in, I will be honest. This is the halcyon days of Genshin. As far as I'm concerned, this is when I got in very shortly before 2.0 started, so I have a lot of fond memory of these characters. As we move forward, there's probably going to be more and more drop off. As we move forward in versions and so forth. But there's a lot of love from this side of the table for 2.0 and Inazuma characters. Just to be open and honest about it, the characters are going to be rated fairly highly, even if maybe they shouldn't be. But
And
mhm.
and to refresh those that didn't catch the first time we did swipe, save, skip, just to reintroduce the concept to everybody. Swiping is going to mean that we are swiping spending money swiping to get the unit. Save would imply we're using our saved up currency that we've earned from in game, but we're not going to swipe or spend real money. And then skip, we're not rolling on this banner at all. And are we taking, I guess, from the perspective of what we know now about the character and the meta evolution, or are we taking it at the time of when they were first launched? Do we wish we had done this?
I'm going to say value relative to the time that it came out. So the idea being that, yes, the character might or might not have dropped off between, now and then, but at the time, do you feel it would have been either a good investment or was it a character that you later got and wished you'd gotten earlier, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, but this is a hindsight 2020 sort of look at the character.
All right. Well, I think we've stalled long enough and explained it ad nauseum there. So let's dive in. Who are we going to be discussing first, Steve?
Well, the first character is going to be Kamisato Ayaka, our wonderful samurai girl who hung around way too long for a while there, but at the time we didn't know that. So yeah, I'm going to let you jump in first. Would you swipe, save, or skip for Kamisato Ayaka?
So for Ayaka, so currently I am not an Ayaka haver. She is not on my account currently, and I'm trying to remember why that is. I would imagine it was because I was saving up for maybe some characters that we knew were coming, or perhaps I had maybe just pulled for characters depending on who the previous banner had been.
I'm willing to
Even
bet you
though,
were
yeah, like
saving. Consider looking at what's coming up on the list, you were probably saving.
okay, yeah, so you have the list in order, and
Yeah.
so this may jar my memory a bit more once we get into those characters. But yeah, even with her extended banner period time, I did not pull for her. However, I think going back, I think she would still be a skip for me. I think um, I don't know. I think she was strong, and I think a little meta for at least a little bit. I think some of the strongest, like one of the stronger ults in the
Mhm.
game at the time when she came out, and also with the unique movement, and then being able to kind of easily freeze everything. But I still think it would ultimately be a skip because at that point in time, I had Ganyu on the account, so that frozen team build was already kind of taken by a main DPSer. So, um, like you mentioned, not speaking to like maybe how strong she was because she was pretty strong if memory serves at release. But I had her slot filled on my account essentially with Ganyu. So it would be a skip for me. But what about you, Steve?
She would be a save for me. Not a swipe. I I I understand that she was very strong. Yeah, I got her when she first came around. She was basically the second. limited 5-star character I got. Because I got very lucky on Kazuha, and then I was able to turn around and get very lucky uh, Aka. Um, so that ended up working out, but she carried me quite a bit through Inazuma. Um, Less so past that, but I would say I got a good year's worth of value out of her. She was headliner for my team. I would say her biggest issue is the fact that Cryo just dropped off a cliff about near the end of Inazuma. Cryo's value just got worse and worse and worse, and it hasn't really recovered. If you want our deeper thoughts on Cryo, we did the entire Elemental series last season. But yeah, I think Ayaka is unfortunately harmed more by the element that she is, that at the time it was a boon. You know, she was a very strong Cryo unit, and Cryo was very well regarded at the time. But as time has gone on, Cryo has just become less and less supported as an element, and unfortunately, Ayaka just hasn't been able to keep up. So she would be a save for me. I wouldn't go so far as skip, but yeah, she's definitely safe. So
Right.
yeah.
Taking a roll, and what do we got next?
Our next character is Yoimiya, our pyro archer girl.
Oh man. I'll let you go first on this one. I'll let you take this one.
She's a skip. Unfortunately, she always came out right before somebody more important and better. Having used her in a number of events, I actually think she's a fun character, and she's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. She's just unfortunately constantly bracketed by better characters, both before and after, and she just doesn't, unfortunately, do pyro very well because she's more about consistent low damage instead of the big punchy hits that you get with like Hu Tao and other pyro characters that were out both at the time and that came later. So I like her. I think she's fun. Unfortunately, she's a very easy skip for me.
I'll keep this one short as well because I think we share some similar sentiments. But yeah, it's a skip for me as well on Yoimiya. I do, if memory serves, her play style is like you said, the quick little hits, so the rapid fire bow user as opposed to the charge shot user that is Ganyu. And while her character, is very bubbly and her personality whenever she shows up in events is really fun and energetic and always very positive. Yeah, her banner just always seems to be sandwiched in between some pretty, big characters, or maybe it was being rerun. Maybe during her reruns, it was going simultaneously with another like big character that was on our radar. So, Yoimiya, unfortunately, a skip for me as well.
Which brings us to Raiden Shogun. I'm gonna let you answer first on this one. Raiden Shogun, our Electro Arn Spear user.
Well, Raiden Shogun, I think I will share the general consensus opinion on this and say I would go ahead and swipe for her. She not only was an awesome character aesthetically, and a lot of Honkai fans, and when I say Honkai, I don't mean Honkai Star Rail, I mean going back to Honkai Impact Third, were very hyped, very excited for her release because she is the same or very similar to I think a character from there as well.
Mhm.
Um, as somebody who only dabbled in Honkai Impact the Third, I didn't have that particular resonance with her, but I really liked her character in the story of Genshin. The fact that yeah, she is, and they don't make bad Archons, but even in the time of the meta of what she did, just the applying of Electro and energy recharge battery that she was for ultimates, to me made her a must pull on top of being, strong herself. She could be played in multiple different play styles of teams. She could either be your on field DPS or she could just be that off field DPS, either one. So that flexibility really enabled her for a lot of different teams. And I think it's for that flexibility on top of a very strong kit would make her a swipe.
I agree. I think she's probably the most universally agreed upon swipe on this list. One thing I do want to point out is that just as far as her lifespan, her tail, and the fact that Dindra really helped Electro and gave her an entirely other play style as, a support character with her skill and so on and so forth. Again, you mentioned her battering, whatever.
Okay. The word, yeah, sure.
Whatever. Her ability to charge the rest of the team's ultimates is, very valuable. She scales very well off of that. I would say I think that the energy requirements and the way that she played with energy definitely had an effect on other characters coming up on this list. That this is the time period where we started to see high energy costs for ultimates, like that
Hmm.
that number really started to shoot up. And I think part of that is because Raiden could, you know, could give them the support that they needed in order to do that. So, 200, 240 plus energy costs for, ultimates was reasonable instead of, and actually helped her instead of, again, what is it? Kazuha had something like what, a 40, 60? Like his is ridiculously cheap, all things considered, in comparison. But yeah, no, 100% she is a swipe, maybe even a C2 R1, to go that far, get her big ult move build. Um, but yeah, no, I agree there. And next is Sen Gonomiya Koko. Good old.
I'll go first on Kokomi because
Mm.
I know you will probably wax poetic about her. You and Kokomi have a very special relationship, and I'll let that be your story to tell. But Kokomi, for me, I think at the time, right at the time of her original run, and I think even maybe her first rerun, was a skip just because of healing in Genshin has never really been that important of a thing. Uh, Especially for somebody like I'm as a Zhongli abuser, essentially, game mechanics went out the window. Now, with new mechanics as we got on in that and we were introduced in Fontaine and Natlan with some new mechanics and such, um, healing and the and that ability became a bit better. But also she's a great hydro applier. So I felt like in a couple ways, the roles that she fills are now kind of contested by Farina
Mhm.
and Yelan. Whether that be because both of those two are very solid hydro appliers, with Farina also being a healer in some capacity as well. So
Yeah.
I think if I think where Kokomi's value was the strongest was kind of before their introductions, and then I think probably if we back, I know we looked at the numbers a long
Mhm.
time ago. I'd be interested. I would wager that the numbers really dropped off, especially well when Yelan came out, probably, but also then even more so when Arena came out. And so for that brief window of time, she was probably very strong, very decent. But then with the introduction of those characters, it's like, well, if you have either of them, you don't really need to go back and snag Comey. Um, so for me, at the time of pulling, probably would be a save, just kind of like bold using the currency I have saved up, but I'm not spending money for her. And then once Farina ultimately came out, then that's basically gonna replace her, for me, unfortunately. Because I say unfortunately because I know again Ukome has a special place in her. But
Mhm.
what are your thoughts, and do they differ from what you actually did in real life?
So I guess for again some context for those that weren't around when Kokomi first came out, she was really heavily bashed because the consensus at the time was that support really didn't matter unless it was shielding. That shields were hands down the best um, survivability option because they ignore hit stun, they just let your character tank through blows, and again, with Zhongli, you functionally weren't going to take damage anyways. The other part of it was players that are more skilled than I would use the invulnerability from ults and so forth to basically fully dodge certain attacks, certain things that could potentially kill them. You just ult through them because you you're immune during the ult animation. So Kokomi was really poorly received, in part because of that, in part because of her passive that gave her negative 100% crit rate. So it was literally impossible for her to crit unless you hyper invested in it, and by that point, you've now gone from zero, like literally impossible, to okay, you crit 1% of the time. Like, it's just not worth it. So as a DPS mainline character, she 100% wasn't worth it. Again, you mentioned her hydro application and a number of other abilities that she had that actually do make her worthwhile. Um, I would go with save for her because I do believe that she was and still is a valuable character. I think Fiorina using Fiorina as a healer is very suboptimal for her. You can do it, but functionally, you never really want to be switching over to her healing mode. You would rather have her in her damage mode and have somebody else heal or support. Um, is my understanding and typically the way that I have felt she plays best. As far as hydro application goes, again, Yelan can carry that, but you need two teams for Abyss. So, and hydro is hands down the best element to apply. So having two really solid hydro appliers doesn't hurt.
That's a
And
that's a fair point.
yeah, and Fiorina came out a patch cycle ago, like a zone ago or a region ago. So you would have had to go all the way through most of Inazuma, most of Sumeru, and then some of Fontaine before you had the opportunity to get her. Again, there are other hydro appliers who will appear both on this list and in potential future swipe save skips that could use for that purpose. But yeah, I feel like Kokomi slots in rather nicely for the most part. And yeah, I mean, I will admit again, part of it is nostalgia because she did spook me while I was trying to get Bennett, and she showed up, wasn't expecting her. Don't don't build pity kids.
But this is where that royal we came into play, right? This is
Yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
what we were referring to here.
Oh, yeah. I think I've told this story before, but for those who haven't, I was a little sauced, decided to build pity, and was rolling for to try and get Bennett, and yeah, Kokomi came home early. So yeah, had Kokomi, and was not necessarily proud of myself, but especially because I'd been really excited for Ito, because I'd hopes for Ito, but yeah, Kokomi took those back behind the shed.
I think in hindsight, I think Comey came out in a better place than Ito did, and has more relevance than Ito would have had for you.
Yeah, which
So I think ultimately worked in your favor.
yeah, ultimately it worked out, and again, she came. I became a Kokomi main, so I learned, I learned to embrace the bomb, to stop worrying and embrace the Kokomi. But since we've kind of mentioned him already, let's I guess roll forward to Artaki Ito, the on of mini games.
I kind of showed my hand there a little bit by saying Kokomi would worked out better for you than Ito. So I'll just go ahead and say it and keep it short. Ito is a skip for me. Not super interested in the character kit. Geo has always had an awkward place in the Genshin meta in terms of elemental reactions, and so yeah, unfortunately for me, it would just be a skip.
Yeah, I agree. He would be a skip. Mono Geo, he basically only has the Mono Geo team. It's been a meme for a little bit, but it just hasn't. It doesn't come together well. It has to have raw numbers in order to make it work, and you can feel in current Genshin, like I think the last two Geo characters, maybe three Geo characters that have come out, have all basically had some form of talent or perk or whatever to try and force you to slot in other elements and go like, no, Mono Geo is not a thing. We know that Geo
It's
doesn't
like
do anything.
it's like fetch. Quit trying to make fetch a thing, right? Was that
Yeah,
a Mean Girls thing? Yeah, it's like quit
yeah,
trying to make Mono Geo a thing. It's not a thing.
yeah. Like they don't want it to be a thing. They tried it for a little bit. It's not the direction they want to go with Geo anymore. The problem is that because Geo has no reactions worth anything, they have to bend over backwards to come up with other ways to make Geo relevant and force it into teams because you can't work it into reactions. It actually is a non-bow. It works against a lot of teams in a lot of ways where it'll strip elements off in order to crystallize them, and then you're left with a very mediocre shield instead of tons of damage. So yeah, it's in a real bad awkward place. Again, we did our elemental series last season, so check that out for a longer rant on Geo. But let's scoot right along into Shinhei.
Shenhe. Oh, good old Shen.
Shinhei.
Um, so for Shenhe was for me a unit. I loved her aesthetic, and her kind of story that we learned about her with like Cloud Retainer and everything like that.
Mhm.
But for me, I think because of the account, I think most folks, if I had to guess what most folks would say, I'd say most folks would say skip her.
Mhm.
But for me, and the way my account was with, and then also I did have Eula at the time as well, and Shenhe has the ice, the defense shred,
Mhm.
with, or the ice resistance shred rather. Um, it would be a save for me. I would use the currency I've saved up to pull for her, and then I would swipe on her costume.
Yeah.
I would buy her costume.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
I have her on my account, and yeah, if I could have, I would have probably swiped to buy her costume. It was her costume is beautiful, like both her and Kaching's, and then even Ganyu. Well, were wonderful costumes when they came out. I loved the aesthetic of them. But the character as a whole, costume outfit aside, um, yeah, outside of other cryo users, she doesn't see too much play, so that's why I think most folks probably say skip. But for me, in the way my account was and the characters that I have on the account, and then even when she came out
Mhm.
originally, because that's when I did scoop her up, is when she came out originally. Because again, I had just kind of invested in Ganyu, gotten Ganyu, and then I already had, I think, Ganyu's signature weapon, because that's a standard weapon from the standard banner. And so I said, oh, well, let's dive full force into this freeze team. And Shenhe was a great support for that, applying cryo to freeze things, shredding the ice defense, everything like that, and honestly, it's just kind of a fun character to play with too. So for me, save. But what about you, Steve? You think I'm correct in the general consensus here, or?
I'd agree. General consensus would be skip. I'm kind of though in the same position you are. I don't have Shin, and because she didn't get a rerun, and she doesn't get reruns very often, I there is a part of me that goes, I did have Ayaka. There was a freeze team. I she would have had value for my account and potentially could have given Ayaka more legs, longer. It would have allowed Ayaka to remain relevant on my teams for longer. But again, she runs face first into the same freeze cryo problem that really reared its head in Super. So she's a very reluctant skip. She's one that I can't quite justify the save. I can't go quite that far against the grain, especially because I don't already have her. So I think part of that is also just I don't want to say nostalgia, but just sort of like, oh, it would have been. She's a nice to have, but she's not so nice to have. I think I would have burned the resources for her. So, uh, yeah, maybe come Shinazna, Cryo will get enough of a bump or some relevancy again, and things will change, and maybe her stock will go up, and I'll be looking back on this and kind of going, should have invested early, but at least as of right now, yeah, she's a skip. But okay. Next is Yai Miko, our Thunder Kitsune Fox girl.
I mean, as one of my top 5 favorite characters in Genshin Impact, uh, gonna be a swipe. Be a swipe for me. I am a Yamiko enjoyer. Love her character, personality, the way she's involved in the story, and the way she's involved in events. Play style is fun. Yeah, absolutely love her, and her again, just having her on my account. I tried to always like fit in teams around her when she came out. It, and I essentially tried to even beyond Inazuma when we
Mm.
got into the future areas and future regions, I was still like, okay, how can I synergize the newer units and the mechanics they're introducing with Yaimiko and did to some extent here, but yeah, always have a soft spot in my heart for Yaimiko. So she is going to be an easy swipe to get onto my account.
Yeah, I do have her as well. I did also end up getting her weapon for her, and I have mixed feelings about her because I she is actually a staple on a lot of my teams, and I do like her as an off-field character. She's very useful on a lot of teams. She slots in very well. You know, Chaska, she's on my Chaska team because she provides Electro, and again, she's an off-field unit, so I don't have to worry too much about her, which works well with the higher on-field time that Chaska has. Um, but her kit just is a little bit too clunky for me. Like I use her, but she always that little bit of lag at the end of her teleport kind of annoys me, and it's gotten worse with time. I've worked through it for the most part, but it's still a problem for me. Her ult is basically just do big damage, and even then, it's not really super big damage anymore. Um, so she really is just there for the turrets. I'll give her a save. I wouldn't swipe for her, knowing what I know now. She would be a save and a potential pickup on a rerun, I think. Uh, Especially because she doesn't really pop off until Dendro, which is a would have been a couple of patches away, anyways. So I think waiting would have been the smarter, uh, or would be at that point would be the smarter. Uh, so yeah, I think save would be for me. Um, Next is Kamisato Ayato, Misato Ayaka's brother. Um, for those of you wondering why they share the first name, it's because they use the Japanese naming style where last name first or family name is first and then personal name is second. Yeah, it's our male samurai Hydro boy. I guess I'll take this one first since you've been going first for the last couple. Um, he would be I think he's a skip. He was a skip when I first time around. I think I would still skip him now. The caveat being he is a very good hydro applier and has some fun play patterns. The problem is that knowing what I know and knowing who's coming up next on this list, he's a skip.
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be a similar boat as far as the skip goes. I did always love his kind of freeze frame sword attack animation that he does.
Mm.
Uh, so I do got to give him some props and some design cool points on that front. But as far as actually having him or wanting him on the account, yeah, going to be a skip for me. Uh, I think I know what you're hinting at. I think I know who you're hinting at. I can't believe she was back in 2.0 if you're or 2.x if you're referring to who I imagine you are. But yeah, as far as being a hydro applier, up until this point, I think a lot of us had probably lost 50-50s at some point and picked up Mona somewhere along the way. Because I think prior to him, I think Mona was the main hydro applier. I guess technically, if we're going into 4 stars, we have our bookworm buddy. But yeah, for brother Ayaka here, or Ayato, excuse me, yeah, gonna be a skip.
All right, and I believe you're thinking Yelan, and yes,
I am.
she is the last limited 5-star character to come out during Inazuma. And I'm gonna spoil it now. I get to be the one that does it. She is a take all my money swipe. I would swipe for her in an instant. She is amazing. I use her to this day. Again, she's one of those characters that it fits on basically any team. Uh, Perfect. 10-10, no notes.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think she is swipe worthy for sure. Water application phenomenal. Um, Also really cool aesthetic and I think character animation art play style. Uh, she is me. So I think my goal. I have a character in every Hoyoverse game that I play. that's a limited character that my goal is to get him to the equivalent of Constellation 6 at some point over the course of the game as a free to play, right? And for Genshin, Yelan is that character. So she is, I have her at E2 right, or C2 right now, and I have her signature weapon. Yeah, she fits into every team, it seems. Anytime a character comes out and I'm looking at maybe some sample example teams, she always seems to be in one of the top, if not the top, the second, highly recommended team essentially. So yeah, swipe, spend all the money, like you said, get her on my account, build her up. Definitely a lot of fun. Plus, uh, makes world exploration a little bit easier. So if you run out of stamina, you can just use her E, and then with her C2, you actually get two E's. So it makes it even easier.
Yeah, yeah. You get to
Little
double.
added tidbit there.
Yeah. All right. That's everybody for Inazuma or for 2.0/2.x Genshin. Uh, I it's
I think we had more tips this time, despite being more fond. You said you than we
yeah.
did back in with the 1.x's. But I think the ones that we said we would swipe on, people would swipe on. These were strong meta defining units that still have relevance to this day, as we're into what? I mean, 4.0 and beyond.
We're well past 4.0. We're in
I
5.0.
forget which what I'm seeing too many anniversary patches right now, so I got my numbers all crossed up.
No, you're good.
Um,
You're good. Uh,
where are we in Genshin? Where are we in the fives yet?
we're in the fives. Should be in the
But
fives.
yeah, so I mean, you see a character like Yelan still having relevant places in meta teams. Raiden Shogun, even she's
Mm.
still got some teams in synergy with being the energy battery that she is, and then being the electro player that she is. And I know I got that little bit of the homer pick there with Yoi Miko and being a little bit of a simp kind of, I
Yeah.
guess. Not really, but you know what I'm saying.
No, no,
Like
you're good.
for
Look,
lack of a better,
I would I swiped for Klee way back, so you know.
yeah, we all fight for the ones that we really like.
Yeah.
So, uh, but yeah, I think we see with a lot of the swipe in the 2.x is again still meta relevant, and then a lot of our skips we kind of, and I think too another thing that's interesting with this is at the time, right, when we were going through the 2.0 live, when we were
Mhm.
living the experience and deciding what we were doing with our accounts, I think a lot of these characters that we said we would skip on, we were completely correct on what they ended up being. They ended up being characters that weren't very relevant, didn't hold value over an extended period of time, if any at all. Uh, and so I really like that. I think we have a good read on characters and theory crafting when they're coming out and how meta will be affected or not characters. So I really appreciate that we have a pretty good pulse on that.
Yeah, I think for the other half of it was it's important to remember that there were a number of rerun banners during this period of time. So a lot of these characters were also running up against proven racehorses. Ito. Yeah, you can go for Arataki Ito, but his best team required Zhongli. It required himself. It required Albedo. It required well, yeah, I mean the Wolf Boy that came with him, but it was
Goro, I think.
Goro, yeah, it was a fairly stacked team in order to build them. Kokomi, I think Kokomi turned around in a lot of people's opinions, but they weren't wrong at the time that shielding just was better overall. Poyo had to go in and start introducing the wolves and so forth because people got so spoiled with their shield that they had to do something in order to try and clear them out and kind of go like, no, you have to heal, stop it. Um, so yeah, I think the theory crafting by the time we got around to Inazuma had really solidified, had a decent pulse on it at that point. Um, and Dindro, it was definitely enough of a shakeup to give some life to some of our weirder off the wall picks like Yaimiko. So no,
Well, I think that is going to do it for the characters in this edition of Swipe, Save, and Skip. I know we got a lot of other news we want to get to, so we'll jump into that next. So looking at events this week, Steve, I'll toss it over to you. That I think we were just looking at Honkai Star Rail this week. That right, or we got something else going on?
Yep, that is correct. The only new event for this upcoming week cycle is Honkai Star Rail, the Morning Starlight event. It is a combat event. Uh, they give you teams and different challenges that you fight through. It is time gated, but by the time this goes live, most of those time gates should be open. So you'll be able to jump in and play all the way through without having to wait, like unfortunately we here in the past are having to do so. So there will be that. It is also beginning of the month, so reminder to those of you who forget, like I tend to do, you can go in and get your 5 pulls for both the standard and the limited banner now, and those are up and available in all Hoyoverse games.
That is a good reminder. Yeah, it's and a few other gotchas do it as well. It's kind of caught on as a trend. The only one I'm having trouble affording it in is Genshin because I'm not doing too many pulls in Genshin as of recent. But
There's a truth there, yeah.
everything else, not a problem. Not a problem getting that. But speaking of pulling for characters, we do have a new character review to quickly run through, also keeping it in the Honkai Star Rail universe. And that would be Anaxa, who just dropped this week. Anaxa is going to be the wind element following the path of erudition. And essentially, Anaxa is going to be, I'll just kind of go over some teams first and then we'll get into his build. But he's going to kind of be a supporting DPS, specifically kind of for the Herta. It sounds redundant for the Herta, right? For that type of build, a couple teams he is going to really flourish in would be the Herta, Anaxa, Tribi, and then your sustain being either Aventurine, Ho-Oh, or Ling Sha. That would kind of be the premium team if you're going that route with Anaxa, if you have those characters. If you're leaning on the more free-to-play side, Anaxa fits in, again, still supporting the Herta, but then you have Gallagher as your sustained character, and then you have Remembrance Trailblazer as kind of the damage amplifier. There's also, you can play Anaxa as a hyper carry. If you're not wanting to do the sub DPS, you can play him as a hyper carry. And again, looking at a premium team for Anaxa would be something like him, Sunday, Ho-Oh as your sustain, and either Robin or Tribi as a secondary support. If you're more, again, on the free-to-play side, you don't have some of those characters on that premium team. Again, we're going to be looking at Gallagher, Trailblazer again, and then Ting Yun as the other amplifier in the Anaxa free-to-play hyper carry team. Now, if we're looking at build for Anaxa, again, outside of signature weapon, some other options for them are going to be the Herta's signature light cone is technically second best, but if you're rubbing him as a sub DPS, probably running the Herta, and therefore she will be using her signature light cone. But if you're running him as a hyper carry, that is going to be a good substitute if you don't have his signature weapon. For free-to-play options, you're going to be looking at the Great Cosmic Enterprise. Will be a 4-star light cone. Getting that to S5 would be a solid choice there. Or Today is Another Peaceful Day would be the other free-to-play option there. Or I guess that one's technically the Battle Pass, if I'm not mistaken. So not pure free-to-play friendly on that one. But Great Cosmic Enterprise is free-to-play, so you got that option going for you. And then even going back further in the registry, if you got Jing Yuan's signature weapon way back when, right, and you just aren't using Jing Yuan anymore or whatever, however you want to try something new, Jing Yuan's signature weapon would be that 5th best option on the list. Looking at relic sets here, you're going to be looking at his best relic set would be the Eagle of Twilight line, which is the original wind damage amp set with the 2-piece, and then the 4 pieces after using the ultimate, forwarding your action by 25%. Also have choices here with Pioneer, Diver of Dead Waters would be another option available to him. You could also utilize for enemies that are Quantum Week. You can use the Genius of the Brilliant Stars if you want to do that, but that's a very niche or specialized set. Or if you've been, farming for some of the more recent characters like I have, you will have plenty of pieces from the Scholar Lost in Erudition, which will also be a decent set for him to utilize as well. Just kind of give a perspective here, we're talking put less than a 1% difference between Pioneer Diver of the Dead Waters, which was his second best choice, and Scholar of Lost in Erudition, which would be the third best choice outside of Quantum Week. And so, again, if you're looking at the main set piece, Eagle Twilight Lane, second, Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters, third, Scholar Lost in Erudition, unless they're Quantum Week, in which case it would be Genius of Brilliant Stars. For the planetary sets, you're going to be looking at Izumo Gensi and Takama Divine Realm. This is the two-piece set that increases the wearer's attack by 12%. And when entering battle, if at least one other ally is the same path as the wearer, then the wearer's crit rate increases by 12%. So that's going to be one that you're using, in those Erudition builds with the Herta. So you're kind of using them as that sub DPS. Other options would also include the Rudolent Arena. So this is the one that increases crit rate by 8%. And if their crit rate is 70% or higher, then their basic attack and skill damage increases by 20%. Maybe a better option if you're going the hyper carry route, unless the hyper carry route involves an Erudition character, right? Best stats on the sets going to be your typical DPS build, in that your body, crit rate, crit damage, prioritizing in that order. Feet are going to be the speed boots. The sphere, attack percentage greater than wind damage, but wind damage also acceptable. And then for the link rope, again, attack percentage or energy regen rate. Maybe prioritize the percentage a little more. Substats, we're going to prioritize speed until we get to your desired breakpoint there. Crit rate, crit damage, and then finally attack percentage. But that's going to do it on Naxa. Looks like I said, I already did teams, so I'll jump into some of our other news. But actually, before we get deep into our other news, Steve, I want to get your thoughts, because we did get the revenue numbers for the month of April, and there were a couple things I wanted to point out or bring up here for discussion point. So a couple things here I'm looking at. I'm seeing things like Nikkei Gods of Victory, 4 spots from the previous month for the 14th revenue earner, though its revenue was down by about $1 million for the month. Cookie Run 13, Battle Cats 12, a new game SD Gundam G Generation is at 11. Fate Grand Order, man, that game's been around ever, still in the top 10. Art Knight, Zenless Zone Zero was up about $5.5 million for the month April. They are 7th overall. Genshin Impact was down, not only position-wise, but numbers-wise. So they were down about $17 million, bringing in $22.6 million. Wuthering Waves bringing in $23.3 million. And then our top 3 games, I just kind of want to get your thoughts on some of these things and the numbers. Pokemon TCG Pocket coming in at 3rd with $61 million, down $25 million from last month. Love and Deep Space is in at number 2, but also down about 14 million, 13.5 million. But the number 1 game last month in revenue was Honkai Star Rail, which was originally in March was 30 million. And I'm saying this isn't me. This is a mistake. This isn't me stuttering. April, they brought in 102.4 million. So they almost quadrupled, or essentially quadrupled their revenue from the month of March. Now, I know this is their anniversary point, so the anniversary started and Castris came out. But for all the talk and all of the content creators talking about the drama and how bad the game state is, even Dawei a little bit saying it's going in a direction he doesn't love, and for people complaining about the cash store, the spending events rather, that are going on. If the player base is going to respond like this with their wallets, I don't know how the devs don't keep doing this. But what are your thoughts? Anything stand out to you on some of these numbers on the list here, Steve?
I mean, the big talking point is obviously Honkai Star Rail, the quadrupling of profits there. I do think the most clearly obvious reason is that it is a anniversary patch. A highly anticipated character came out that, let's be blunt, is very strong. She's going to be a meta character for a while. Um, and I think that the real question is going to be what happens next month, because yeah, I'm not a business specialist. Like I don't do business contract whatever in my daily life, but my understanding is that this is great, but this is also just one quarter out of the year. And Honkai previously, before this, was what, 30,000, I believe, was last month, and before that it was even lower. Like it had been dropping pretty significantly. It was sitting in the top 5, top 10, but it wasn't topping the charts the same way that the Pokemon TCG was. So it's, from a business point of view, it's good that Hoyo was able to, generate the value here. But, again, it's only 1 month out of the year. There's still, and now I have to remember what month we're in. There's still 7 months left for the rest of the year. So, it's not necessarily end of the world. I do agree that it does send some rather concerning messages, that they could potentially take this as, okay, well, even if the game isn't doing well, if we release a broken character, or, specifically the universal trait that she has, if they continue to pull stunts like that, they'll be able to continue to generate revenue, which is, at the end of the day, their company, that's their purpose. I think, though, that they are smart enough to know, and Dawe and Hoyoverse in general have been in this game long enough that they know burning goodwill is not going to help them. I don't know what their overhead is, but I suspect that they would rather be making $30 million every month for the year than be making $120 million for 1 month, and then $10 million, $5 million, etc., for the rest of them. I
Well, again, they made 30 million in March, and we're up to 102 in April. And then to put it in a perspective, they were Honkai Star Rail was number 4
Number 4.
last month in the month of March. Pokemon TCG was the number 1 game last month at 86 million, but did drop off 25 million this month. Love and Deep Space was the number 2 game, dropped off about 14 million, and it's still the number 2 game right now. So basically, Honkai and Pocket TCG essentially flipped.
Yeah.
Genshin dropped down technically. Genshin, I think, was the number 3 last year or last month, and Honkai was 4, but effectively TCG and Honkai split.
Oh.
But yeah, we'll see what goes on. The other thing I'm interested into, and this kind of gets me into my news for next month when we're talking about anniversaries going on, is Wuthering Waves. This is kind of their first anniversary here, is getting ready to kick off. There's kind of some pre-events going on right now, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about very quickly in that regard. So Wuthering Waves, they introduced a Steam client, and then they do have their anniversary coming up. They did their live stream. I posted that up in the Discord, and people had some various reactions to the rewards that are going to be given. There are some pre-anniversary rewards going on right now. I re-downloaded it, tried out, got the player welcome back bonus as well, because it's been a minute since I logged in. So if you're interested in Wuthering Waves, you can try that going on. The Zanny banner is going on right now, who she is a pretty popular character, and I believe pretty strong in the meta. I'm not going to speak to like the intricacies of it all, because again, I've been out of that game since I think the 1.1 patch. But anyway, so that's going on right now. Along those same lines of getting Steam clients, Infinity Nikki, not to be confused with Nike, Goddess of Victory, but Infinity Nikki now also has a Steam client. But they, I believe, are burning some goodwill in that they recently, I believe, raised their pity, where it used to be, and I don't know the pull economy in this game, to be fair, but it was 180 pulls for pity, and I believe they raised it up to 220. So there's been some stirring going on, and some bubbling under the surface that's starting to maybe boil over a little bit in the Infinity Nikki community. But does have a Steam client, so if that's something that encourages you to try out a game, be sure to give that one a go. Infinity Nikki is kind of an open world exploration, little puzzles, mini games, and then really focus on the costumes and the dressing up of your character, from my understanding and what little videos I have seen of it. Jumping back into some other games that are in our normal rotation that we find ourselves speaking to, Nike, Goddess of Victory, is currently experiencing their 2.5 year anniversary, and they just started part two of, or phase two of this anniversary celebration. And whereas Siren was the banner character going on, still ongoing at the moment, again, a free pull per day on that banner, they did just introduce the second overclock unit, which is going to be Mihara Bonding Chain. So this is a different kind of unit in that it's the a missileless manufacturer, but she is also kind of this overclock or overcharge unit, um, similar to what they did with Rappy Red Hood back a few months ago. And so the original Rappy was an SR character, and now they've released that new character, the SSR. Well, Mihara, same thing. She was an SR character, and this version is an SSR character that can be used in terms of manufacturer towers, either in the Missileless Tower or the Pilgrim slash Overcharge one. So she's a Fire Element Minigun Burst 3 user, and I am not ashamed to say she was an instant pull for multiple copies to get her into my lobby. It's two thumbs way up on that. But she also does have a gacha costume skin going on, so there's two gacha costumes going on right now. Again, this is kind of the $50 skin, effectively, that you're going to pay unless you get really lucky. So they have that going on for her. If you're interested in that, give that a go. They have a new battle pass for the month of May. This is, essentially what is the $15 or $20 battle pass that gives you a bunch of pull resources and other growth materials. And if you complete the battle pass, you'll get a regular costume for Cinderella. But that event is going on currently. In other gaming news, Girls Frontline 2, they just had their new event drop this week. So Girls Frontline 2 for the global server is, again, about a year behind the Chinese server. So we've had a little bit of a roadmap. But the new character introduced for this patch was Vector, who is a support class who uses an SMG. And she is going to be very relevant in the burn damage or the fire damaging teams. So she still holds a pretty relevant place in the meta on the Chinese servers. So if you are playing Girls Frontline 2, you may want to check out Vector. She synergizes really well with QJ and Sharkery. They are kind of the core of the burn team units. And then there's a big power spike for Vector. If you get an additional copy, get the equivalent of a C1 of her. Signature weapon is a bonus too, but signature weapons aren't required for her. But yeah, if you're wanting to give it a go, or you're needing some support for your QJ and Sharkery, Vector is going to be relevant not only in general content but also boss content and end game content as well. Other things going on with this event, you're going to get over the course of doing daily quests, which you do normally by doing your dailies. You'll eventually get a free skin for Queen, who's a 4-star supporter unit. But be sure to check that out over in Girls Frontline 2. And then lastly, in some other news, Brown Dust 2. I had mentioned this, I think, last week, that they had announced a collab but hadn't announced what it was yet. Well, they have here this past week announced it is with Goblin Slayer. So if that is an IP you are interested in, they will be bringing a few units from Goblin Slayer into Brown Dust 2. I believe here it starts up in a week or so. So I guess that would maybe be a couple days, like a week from now, but a couple days from when this goes live. But yeah, if you're interested in Goblin Slayer or you enjoy Brown Dust 2, be sure to check out Save Up for that collab. But that's going to do it for us this week. We do want to thank you guys for joining us. Let us know, down below your thoughts on who you would swipe, skip, or save for in the Genshin 2.x character roster. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to show your support for the show, or if you didn't enjoy the show and you'd like to get your hate view on us, hate views, reviews too, we appreciate those, but be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. You can email us at brohoyopod@gmail.com if you have any questions or suggestions for the show. And then we also have a link to the Discord in the description, so you can join us over there for news, game nights, and content notification. Join us next week when we discuss buyer's remorse in gacha games. But until then, keep gaming.
We made a choice, go